Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Federalist Radio Hour. I'm Christoper Bedford, senior editor at the Federalist, and I'm joined today by Daniel Turner, who is a good friend of mine and the executive director of Power of the Future, which is an interesting organization that fights for American energy and for American workers in a way that pits you against some of the billionaire activists and the dead billionaires, activists' kids who want to take away jobs, and also pits you against big oil and some of the larger energy interests. But we're not even here to talk about that fight. We're here to talk about a new fight because Daniel Turner last month penned an article for Human Events about why he's leaving Washington, D.C. Goodbye, Washington, D.C., it was called. And it elicited a huge backlash as well as a great amount of praise from right and from left. This backlash came, something you're quite familiar with. So welcome to the show, Daniel.
It's great being with you. Thank you.
So tell us about, you're a city boy, and you have a little bit of elitist scorn for those who are fake city boys.
Yes.
I've only lived in one half my life. I'm not a sixth generation city guy. So tell me about your life growing up and your love for the city, because you're one of the people who convinced me when I bought a house a few years ago to live in Washington, D.C. and to not move off Capitol Hill because it would be treason to leave the hill, he said.
And yet, here we are. Yeah, I am a proud city kid. Been a city kid for generations, like you mentioned. The Turners. My uncle, who was in Congress, and he's like a family historian, he dated our family back to New York City from the 1840s, right? And we are proud city people, and we genuinely love. My parents love New York. My grandparents, my brothers and sisters, they talk about New York like you talk about a family member. They are genuinely proud New Yorkers, and I carry that with me. I love growing up in the city, and I grew up in the city when it was tough, right? Pre-Giuliani era, AOC arriving in Queens when it was safe and gentrified and cool and trendy, right? I lived there when it was none of those things. It was just dangerous and scary, but I still loved it. And I've been in D.C. since 2003, but what happened in the last couple months broke me. And I left, and I said to many people, I have never felt so unwelcome before, and I've always been welcome in the city because it's mine.
You know, and so you recently had bought, now it's gone, a condo in Washington, great views, wonderful place. You're a neighborhood guy. You like to buy from the local postcard store, from the local butcher, from the local flower shop. Sometimes it's more expensive, but these are the small businesses. You're a supporter. You don't have any kids in public school. You're successful. What changed your way of thinking about this city from not too long ago when you bought a condominium you were very, very proud of, rightly so, on Pennsylvania Avenue in a busy area? What changed? Because there's always been trouble in the city. Yeah. You know this. There's always been crackheads. There's always been people who are littering. There's always been teenagers who were punks like we were, who could cause trouble. So what was the switch?
Yeah, and I mentioned that. Like, there is a certain amount of nonsense you put up with growing up in the city, right? You would come to expect that the trains don't always work, that there's and let me pronounce it like a Queens kid, like there's garbage on the street, right? You expect certain inconveniences, but in return you want just like a little sense of security that I am not at risk. So that was on a downward slide, right? The crime has gone through the roof.
And there's always some level of risk.
Exactly, always, right? There's some level of risk.
There's random crimes, there's madmen.
Absolutely. So that was beginning to erode a little bit or deteriorate over time. But the last couple months broke me, and it was not just the coronavirus lockdown when all these stores that you talked about began to shutter, right? And the individual restaurants, these big restaurant groups that everyone knows, I'm not going to even mention their names, they have tons of money and backers, they're fine. But that little individual restaurant that's not part of a big conglomerate, they're dead. They're not coming back.
Seventh Hill Pizza, Montmartre, the French restaurant next door, now Aqua Al Dewey, and Harold Black, the bar that they have, looks like they're not coming back. And they're medium-sized restaurants. Yeah. One of the best in the city.
And great restaurants and community ones, right? Like really local people would go there and get a beer and get a drink and get a bowl of pasta. But what did it for me was the Black Lives Matter movement and not racial justice. DC, Lord knows, urban America has always had its sense of racial justice and racial strife. I grew up in Queens during the Crown Heights riots, right? I mean, I remember I did a play in senior year of high school when those riots broke out. And I was very excited because I was like, this could be a big break for me, right? Who knows who's going to see me? Maybe I'll be an actor. And it was basically...
What was the play on?
My senior year, I think it was called Child's Play. Not Chucky, the little evil
That would have been
doll.
awesome.
I know. It's an old play that it's about... it's about an all-boys boarding school and violence and abuse in an all-boys.
So you thought the
school.
riots were going to be your break?
So I thought this play was going to be my break.
Oh.
The riots broke out, and the play had no one in the audience because everyone was like, "I'm not going to go see some stupid play at the high school," because there were riots going on in New York City. And Mayor Dinkins was congratulating people that, hey, congratulations for not killing as many as we thought you were going to. And I remember thinking, what the hell is
The
happening
peacefulness
here?
intensified.
Exactly. So this is part of my DNA, right? I mean, like, it was no big deal. It was a big deal, but it was part of living in the city. The last couple months.
Yeah, what broke the social contract for you?
So I'm a conservative. Make no bones about it.
You're outnumbered in this city.
I've always been outnumbered. Outnumbered in New York, outnumbered in D.C. I knew that. I have never been forced by my government to espouse to any political belief or political group.
Even in New York City.
Even in New York City. And we saw Andrew Cuomo, no, I don't live in New York anymore, but we saw Andrew Cuomo highlight the city in purple when he passed the most radical abortion bill in history, right? That was the first time, I think, that I saw my family say, whoa, I didn't vote for this, and you're making the Empire State Building purple.
We've lit it up red and yellow since to celebrate communist China. How
Exactly.
many millions of dead, tens of millions of dead.
So now you are being forced to celebrate their beliefs. And if you're going to tell me as a conservative that this organization, very concrete organization, who supports abolishing the police, who supports the abolition of the nuclear family, who promotes abortion, whose stated end goal is Marxism, and whose donate button redirects to Act Blue, which is the fundraising arm of the Democrat National Committee. If you're going to tell me this organization called Black Lives Matter is the vehicle by which we're going to achieve racial justice, I say that's BS. And you cannot force me to follow that. And all these stores are shuttered. All of my life is closed down because of coronavirus. There's not enough money to empty the garbage pails, but Mayor Bowser found money and a crew to paint this street and to close down hotels because she believes in this cause, and she's forcing me. And when she says to me, your silence is violence, your indifference is what is causing this. Silence is violence. I just don't want to be part of it. Remember the Women's March the day after the inauguration? Remember the Earth Day every April 12th, 20th, whatever it is? We can avoid them. I'm not going to the mall. There's 4,000 activists. Ignore it. That David Hogg kid and the gun thing that he had, not going to the mall today. You can't avoid this.
And in general, in the old days, even when you weren't able to avoid it because of where you worked or where you were, it didn't really matter because at the end of the Women's March or at the end of whatever protests there were, the union protests, the shut it down, they'd all be in the bar at Old Abbott Grill by the White House by 1 p.m., throwing back beers. And if you sat down there next to them, nobody gave a darn about your politics. At that point, it was Washington, have a beer, enjoy the place, but now that's gone.
Yeah.
And Antifa is not in the bar sitting down having a beer. Black Lives Matter is disrupting. Brunching, which I'm too old to do. You're too old to do. Is a privilege. Is some kind of paternalistic racist regime. Yeah. You can't even be by yourself anymore, and you can't be left alone.
Silence is violence, right? And this as a political philosophy is nonsense. And not only that, it is extremely dangerous, right? And so there's a comfort level. The left has always owned speech. We know that. Wittgenstein, if he were with us today, would have a blast with this, right? Abortion is an abortion, it's choice. Who's going to oppose choice? Milton Friedman had a whole series called The Right to Choose, right? They're crafty, they're lefties, right? This isn't about racial justice, it's about Black Lives Matter. Is it a cause or is it a group?
Well, they say it's not political when it helps. This isn't politics. This is just fact.
Right, exactly.
No, this is a democratic organization that espouses socialist, anti-family views. It's not. It's political.
Yeah.
And when there are leaders who sprout out, who do these different things all over the cities in the country with the sanction of the mayors, sanction of the governors, those people are wonderful, laudatory leaders, but when one of those leaders says something horrible, they say, well, they're not on this list of 3 people who are actual sanctioned leaders. It's a back and forth game that's really taking advantage of people, and people are afraid, and people are worried to stand up, but you stood up, and you said something. I mean, You stood up with your dollars. Why did that matter? Because a lot of people in the city, they give and they take. It's a back and forth relationship, and you've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But there are some people who also they give and they give and they give, and it may not be in marching, it may not be in volunteering in the local library. These are important things. So why should Muriel Bowser and mayors care about you leaving?
Me as an individual, I'm sure they're happy I'm gone. And Lord knows I got a lot of emails that were like, you should leave. No one wants you here anyway. Fine, right? You don't have to like me as a person. But most people don't like me. No, exactly. I don't like me sometimes either. But me as a taxpayer who just gives economically, I don't put my kids in her awful schools. I don't get any social services for my health, for my food, for my living. I don't get any government assistance.
I don't think I've seen you on the subway.
But oh my God, no!
Maybe once in a while.
I will show you.
So you use the subway
even still.
So you leech.
I pay for it. Oh my gosh! What is it? $2.75 a trip, right?
But you actually don't have to pay for it if you don't want to anymore.
No, you just.
I'm serious.
Some people just jump it.
No, it's decriminalized.
Exactly, and so why am I paying?
It's a stupid tax.
Everything, it gets to the point that all you do is you pay into this society, and all I want in reply, if you're not going to guarantee my safety, which the mayor's not, she's made it clear she's not going to guarantee my safety, at least leave me the hell alone. Mm-hmm. Right? At least tell me, you angry Daniel, and I'm not angry. I think people who know me, I'm like a really happy, friendly guy. But you, Daniel,
yeah, I'm the angry one.
You can just sit in your room and stew and listen to the Federalist podcast and read Chris Bedford's latest column.
That'll get you angry.
But I can't do that because silence is violence. And like you said, if I'm just sitting in a restaurant, it's not now uncommon to have some guy with a bullhorn yell at you and say that you don't have a right to sit there and enjoy a meal because I have a cause, a grievance, or whatever. I mean, who doesn't have a cause or a grievance? Everyone in America does.
Yeah, I got a grievance. I thought this place was for the real Italians. Get out of here.
So I, with my half Italian wallet, had to take it, and I had to go somewhere else because I just can't pay into this anymore. I can't pay into a system that tells me that I don't have the right to be left alone.
And you moved to a part of the country, won't go into specifics for you. But
please don't, because they'll come after me.
No, I'm sure
I have guns now.
Good for you.
Yes,
good for you.
Thank you.
And the part of the country you live in it's not a conservative a bastion. I mean, if you go to parties in that part of town or you go to restaurants, people are activists. People have causes. People care about it. There are wonderful restaurants, and they'll let you know what their politics are, and they'll serve you a great meal, and you're absolutely welcome. So you're going to have to still deal with this in parties. It's not like you're just going, I'm done. I'm going to West Texas where everyone agrees with me.
No, but at least I can be safe. I can not have my car get broken into. I cannot deal with the crime that I deal with on a regular basis, and I don't have a government. So yeah, bars, individuals, cocktail parties, drinks. You still hear some progressivism. It's inevitable, right? But I don't have a city council or a mayor who tells me, you who don't believe with us what we believe, you are the cause of these problems.
Their biggest concern is noise ordinance,
which
they are strict on.
Yeah.
Don't make noise.
And not the guy who lit St. John's Church on fire.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He's got a grievance. Mm-hmm. The guy who spray painted the National Monument, they've got grievances.
His peacefulness intensified.
His peaceful is very intense peace.
He's a peacemaker.
Yeah.
But you did get a horrific backlash to this. And it's not just a normal backlash, the kind of predictable backlash. Well, you kind of got an elitist take there. Like, leave me alone, I pay, don't bug me. You can't afford to pay to not pay. Or as the mayor of New York said, it upsets me that the wealthy think that they have a seat at this table because they don't get to decide how New York is run. They just ask to be left alone. But there are some people that came at you from quadrants you wouldn't expect. Notably, I saw this publicly on social media from the Koch network, which is someplace where you worked for many years. I worked for a year. I had a lot of good times there and a lot of good friends there.
I thought I did too.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so too. They stand for leave me alone more than anything. They stand for libertarianism. They stand for government get out of my business.
Yeah.
And no shame, of course.
If anyone follows that thread, and I'm not encouraging people to go online and look for it because it was pretty nasty, it goes to show how sometimes the biggest knock on libertarians is that they're a joke, and this is the biggest proof of that. right? This whole libertarian, like, we're small. No, they're not. Like, libertarianism is a myth. The fact that Coke is libertarian is a myth. They are conservative progressives. I don't know another way to put it. They are totalitarian liberals, who I don't know what the hell they are. But the fact that these folks, this is government-sanctioned politics. You're going to tell me if the most conservative mayor in D.C. put a Christianity Matters spray painted outside of JR's, very popular gay bar in D.C., and we're going to shut down the street in front of it, and we are going to have activists there. And anytime you're out there having a cigarette in JR's, we're going to be there in a bullhorn saying, Christianity matters. Coke would be the first people to say, how dare you attack? But in this case, I'm the one who's at fault. Me, who just wants to be left the hell alone. They are totally fine with government-sanctioned politics. I find that fascinating. Really do.
Now, what was the nature of the attacks? Because I don't know how much you're willing to go into this, but go in as far as you're comfortable.
I don't want to mention names because I'm more respectful than they are. It's not hard to see who it was, but they called me out publicly.
I know for a fact that one of them just bought $1 million house outside the city, and pays for a nanny to watch their child. But how dare you leave the city?
I find it fascinating that people, it's like the quintessential limousine liberal, right? Like they want everyone else to live a certain way, but they don't want to live it. You, in my intro, talked about how I normally deal with energy issues. One of the biggest problems I have with the Hollywood left when it comes to energy is they are the biggest private jet using luxury yacht. Bernie Sanders, you guys have covered it. He was averaging $300,000 a quarter on private jet travel, but he's the biggest green going, right?
So private jet travel when you can get it. It's really nice.
It's very nice. But
knock it.
Hypocrisy cracks me up, and I find it amazing that people who were saying, like, I am so ashamed that you were my friend, and I am disappointed in you, and you're a racist, and all that stuff. You know what? Bring your kids to my park where I walk my dog, and say to your kids the way I've whispered to my dog, hey, we're not going to go play over there because that weird dude who's pleasuring himself makes me uncomfortable right now. But they don't have that in, like, Fairfax County that much.
No.
They don't have guys passed out.
No playground masturbation?
No, they don't have guys passed out, on leaning against their car when you're trying to get into it. And it's like, oh boy, there's a guy shooting up heroin leaning against my tire. Do they have that in, like, the fancy parts of Alexandria? I don't think so. So to find these people who, again, I thought were my friends.
But they didn't just call you a elitist. They called you a racist.
They called me a racist, but where do they live?
They do not live in a nearly diverse community that we've lived in.
No.
Which is absolutely, and it's wonderful. It's a mix of Hispanic and black and white and yuppies and people who've been there forever, blue collar, kids, there are high schoolers. Sometimes just like when I was a kid, you have to keep an eye on the high schoolers.
Yeah.
We get rowdy. But they don't have any of that they have to deal with.
No.
But you are a racist.
I'm not going to begrudge anyone for where they live or for where they decide to raise their kids. Freedom is a wonderful thing, right? But I just find it amazing that they choose not to live where I choose, but they have the gall to tell me that I am quote. And the thing that cracks me up about the racist, you're a racist. If you look at the video, most of the violence is committed by white people, right? They're like 26-year-old angry, Ivy-educated white men and women who are all the guys have really thin shoulders, right, and like skinny black jeans. All the girls
thin-chested men.
Yeah, thin-chested men. All the girls are like blonde, and they're angry at something, and they're the ones committing the violence. So it's like, you're a racist about what? Government-sanctioned violence makes me a racist in my neighborhood. Again, these people who have the gall to yell at me. One of them, lobbies for one of the biggest corporations in America. It's like, you've done pretty well during this coronavirus lockdown, right? But the store across the street from me, where I saw the little old ladies from the housing project buy their groceries at every day, where do they shop now?
Yeah, because it was the window. I went there a few days later, and all the windows were boarded up. It was smashed up.
And the people, by the way, I'm talking about. Where are those old 80-year-old ladies? Where are they shopping now?
Mm-hmm.
Are we supposed to get them Instacart, right, for their smartphone? Or if you are in government 8 section housing at 85 years old, odds are you barely have a dime. But their lives that don't matter.
So anyone who's been through a public shaming, as you have, knows that it's rough, but it's not the end, typically. However, we do see some of the end for people with cancel culture and coming after jobs and coming after friends and coming after defenders. What else did they come after you? Did they come after people you know? Did they?
Oh, yeah. There was a list. One person even said, like, I am going to go through and find every person who liked or shared this and publicly shame them. I know people who are in this world that we're in, right? Who they threaten their businesses, they threaten their contracts because you don't like the fact that they.
Well, Coast's got a lot of power, a lot of buying power,
and they claim that one of their main interests is free speech.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, can we just laugh at the absolute hypocrisy of this $400 million apparatus which promotes free speech and
the ultimate rich kid apparatus?
I mean, my gosh, it was so disgusting to see. And like you said, I worked there for a long time. I thought these guys were friends. I still have some wonderful friends who were there.
And some of them share the article.
Oh,
big mistake.
My favorite part, which I did say to one person without revealing names, because again, cancel culture is real.
Yeah, you don't want to.
I told you how many people on your staff emailed me or DM'd me on Twitter and said, I just read this, I thought it was great, nice job, etc. So I said to this person, either you all are closet racists, like me, right? You've called me that.
Yeah, you're an evil person.
Your organization is totally failing at identifying racism, or the third choice, this racism is so vague and so broad that you can just throw it out willy-nilly.
So then I'm sure that infuriated them. And did they ever give you a reason? Did the main attacker, we won't mention who he is and who his wife are in their multi-million-dollar house with their nanny, did the main attacker ever actually list what was racist about your article?
I asked many a time. Just racist.
I mean, I read it. It's Goodbye Washington D.C. I think everyone should read it. Mayor Bowser broke her contract with presidents like me, so we're leaving. It's not a call to violence. I don't think it mentions race anywhere in here. You might mention growing up Italian-Irish in New York, but Italian mother. But yeah, I don't think it's about race.
No. So what
did he point to?
No, I don't know what the hell he pointed to, other than the fact that, like, you're leaving D.C. and you don't have a right to criticize.
That's weird.
Oh my God.
That's so weird.
I know. It's very strange.
What a kooky world.
Very strange. But the whole world is upside down, right? Everything is left is right and up is down, so nothing seems to make any sense. This word is the most toxic word in our vocabulary right now. And the fact that one person can say this is racist and the other person can say no, it's not, and they can both hold firm to their beliefs. Again, Wittgenstein, for those who know philosophy of linguistic philosophy, he would be having a field day right now, because one truth cannot be divided multiple times, or one fact cannot be divided multiple times. And yet this is what we're doing. So no one can define racism for me, let alone bigger issues like systemic racism.
And people are trying to fill the void and say that, well, I mean, babies are racist.
Yeah.
There's that book that the Federalist has been reviewing. There's an adult version, a teen version, a child version. I think there's like a cardboard page baby version about how to make your baby not a racist.
I didn't read it's a baby.
The illustrations are great. They remind me of an old album or something, but the message is truly deeply insidious, and that's that everything is racist. Which I guess at the end of the day, if everything's racist, then nothing's racist, right? Yeah. The word's got to lose its meaning.
It's lost its value, just like so many businesses here in D.C., just like people who are trying to go back to work at the St. Regis or at the Hay Adams, but they're both closed down now because it's Black Lives Matter Plaza, and no one is allowed to go into those hotels, right? And so is it racist for those folks who worked there, who were whatever position, that they don't have jobs anymore? How about the people?
Some very nice hotels, the kind of place you take
grandma off the record bar? Right?
Yeah, it's a wonderful
place. Hay Adams, one of the greatest, like gentlemen's. Or is that sexist?
You can say gentlemen. I know the ladies loved it.
Okay. One of the great old gentlemen, like martini, bourbon bar, elegant. You kind of went dressed up.
There's a great dive bar around the corner, but if you wanted a good cocktail, you went to the off the record for sure.
Those people have yet to open up because of what's happening on that street, 16th Street.
It's so tragic. It's intimidation of the businesses. So what do they owe their property taxes? I mean, all these residents, you were able to leave. A lot of people can't leave. You make a private living, or a living based on people who support your work at Power of the Future, fighting for Indian tribes and coal miners and people who work in these power plants and who are forgotten by Tom Steyer and billionaires' kids who want to drive them out of business. So you were able to withstand this storm. A lot of people who work in businesses aren't able to withstand the storm. They could be fired if you
Yeah.
worked at Coke and had said this.
Yeah.
Or people who work at the Adams, they can't withstand the storm, even if they agree.
People who work
They can't withstand the storm because their business is shut down.
People who work at Goodyear can't withstand the storm.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, and it's the same mentality of this is what I think infuriated me the most, and this is why I'm so happy to talk to you and why I haven't backed down. The same anger I feel at someone like Tom Steyer, who has made billions off of coal in China, but is fighting hard to put coal miners out of a job here in America, is the same attitude I saw of these folks who make very good money working for a think tank that promotes big ideas, coming after someone like me because they dislike what I wrote. And again, on the basis of we are not going to have a perfect society until everyone who differs than me is dead. Like they tried to take me out of the public square, to which I say a big, F you. Like, I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to not believe what I believe. I'm going to unfriend you, as I did tell them, like, well, I guess we're not friends anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no coming back from going on social media and telling people, this guy is this, and if you are friends with him, you are no longer our friends. Well, then enjoy your small, little, bitter, angry world.
Well, it's a $400 million trust fund to hang out with Van Jones, who actually is probably way more tolerant and more intelligent than anyone who I've met there who's still there in quite some time. But thank you, Daniel Turner, for joining us. The article, I think you should check it out, is Goodbye Washington, D.C. and Human Events. And the organization that keeps Daniel going is Power of the Future. This has been another edition of the Federalist Radio Hour. Here you can follow us on social media at The Federalist. And until next time, be lovers of freedom and anxious for the fray.